And thank you so much for staying with CNN News 18. We are now getting some breaking news where CNN News 18 has accessed the copy of the Women's Reservation Bill that was passed by the Cabinet yesterday. The bill, in fact, says that 1/3 of the seats will be reserved for women in the Parliament and in all legislative assemblies. The reservation will come into effect after the delimitation for 15 years. That's the key point number 2 that we have managed to ascertain through the bill. In fact, this bill will be tabled today itself by the Law Minister Arjun Meghwal. Remember, this was a crucial bill that even the opposition parties wanted an assent on. They had, in fact, discussed this during the all-party meeting before the convening of the special session. This, in fact, was put to, this got a nod, and now it is going to be tabled today in the new parliament. Even as the members have moved from the old to the new, we were expecting that this is going to be happening in all probability tomorrow, but now we are learning that the bill is going to be tabled today. The key aspects of the bill, the Women's Reservation Bill, really mentions that 1/3 of the seats will be reserved for women in Parliament and all legislative assemblies. And also this legislation, this reservation will come into effect after the delimitation for 15 years. Now, like I've mentioned, the Law Minister, Mr. Meghwal, tables the bill today. The copy of the bill has been sent out to the members of the Parliament to actually browse through, and then the discussion is going to start. Remember, this is going to go ahead without much furor because all of the political parties have, in fact, been wanting to go ahead and table the bill. However, this does have some sort of nitty-gritty, some sort of enhancing. That's why they're not really sticking to the old bill that was passed, that was in fact introduced by the Congress party in the UPA era. There's some sort of a tweaking that this bill will in fact see to offer more perspective on what exactly is the bill really saying. Let me take this across to my colleague Anusha Soni, who is also with us on the broadcast. Anusha, if you can take us through the contents of this women's quota bill.
So, Greha, to add to what you've already said, Article 330 of the Indian Constitution will require amendment. This is a constitutional amendment that will be required to make women reservation in this country a reality. As we go through the details of this particular bill and what exactly are the constitutional changes this bill is making, number 1/3 of the total number of seats reserved under the clause of Article 330 shall be reserved for women belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So the idea of a quota within a quota to give SC/ST representation even in the women reservation, that idea has been preserved. That's point number 1. As nearly as 1/3, as I said, for the SC/ST, and they're also talking about the reservation for women in legislative assembly of every state. So in my understanding, in my legal understanding, this bill will also require the assent from certain states as well. If it's a constitutional amendment which is being promulgated, which will be put forward, which has been put forward by the government on the floor of the House. Let's move on. As nearly as 1/3 of the seats reserved for women belonging to SC/ST, the same logic is going to apply at the state assembly level as well, something that will apply at the parliamentary level. And talking about the other provisions, Article 334 of the Constitution, they are inserting yet another article, and they're talking about the census, they're talking about the delimitation exercise, and look at the massive changes that need to be brought in. Women's reservation is not just a simple amendment to any part of the Constitution or a statute that needs to be brought in. It's a pervasive constitutional change that needs to be brought in that will directly impact the Constitution or the components of how the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha operate, Greha. And that is the reason you can see these various provisions, 239AA, 330A, 332A. This particular area, this particular part of this legislation pertains to the National Capital Region, Delhi, which is a special arrangement under Indian Constitution. These are exclusive details that we are putting out for you as far as this particular law is concerned. There are key changes, nuances from the earlier draft of the bill that was presented, and clearly this one, a lot of thought has been put into it. Delimitation exercise, as earlier argued, will have a huge bearing to make this particular vision a reality in the times to come.
Right, thank you so much for that, Anusha. Let me also take this across to my colleague Pallavi Ghosh, who's also with us, standing by to offer more perspective on this women's reservation bill that got the cabinet nod last night and is now all set to be presented before the parliament. Pallavi, I'd like to understand, we were getting various views from the opposition, especially the Congress party. You had senior leaders like Mr. P. Chidambaram calling it a victory of the Congress and its allies if the bill is passed today. It is happening. The law minister is going to be presenting that. But there was also perspective that this bill will come into effect with some sort of a tweaking, and hence there is possibly going to be a credit war. What are we learning vis-a-vis that?
No, there is already a credit war, no possibility of that, and I think the opposition parties, particularly the Congress, got a whiff of the fact that a women reservation bill will be coming up in the special session of Parliament, which is why in the Congress Working Committee meeting in Hyderabad for 2 days, both the BRS, that's K. Kavita, as well as the Telangana Chief Minister, write a letter to the Prime Minister asking for the women reservation bill to be passed, including Sonia Gandhi. In fact, yesterday, when Adhiniyam Chaudhary was speaking in Lok Sabha, you could see those nudges coming in from Sonia Gandhi to Adhiniyam Chaudhary, where she was telling him that, mention the women reservation bill. And since yesterday, the Congress's social media department has been putting out ads to go on to show that this is a bill which Sonia Gandhi passed in 2010, but the government has not been, interested in even introducing it. And today, if they are doing it, they're only doing it because they want to snatch the credit, because they want to score a brownie point, and also because they know there's a possibility of a defeat in the upcoming state elections. And that's the reason why they want to have a diversion and, hope that a women reservation bill is going to earn them those critical votes, as women votes do matter. But it's not just the Congress party. I mean, the Trinamool Congress, and I remember in 2010, Sonia Gandhi had told us this, that I don't know why Mamata Banerjee has abstained from the bill. Similar was the case with the Samajwadi Party, as with the RJD as well. Today, because of political compulsions, all these political parties, Anusha, are going to be and are already taking credit. No one wants to be seen on the wrong side of the women vote. And this is the bluff which I think the BJP would want to call out, that you couldn't do it in 2010. Because of a lack of political will, you couldn't take them on. That's what the message they want to give to a Congress. You couldn't take them on because you were scared that your government will fall, and therefore it has been now left to us to ensure, one, there's consensus and unanimity, and two, the bill finally becomes a reality.
Pallavi, I request you to stay on with us. Arunima is also with us on the broadcast. Arunima, one key aspect that we are breaking for our viewers now is that this reservation, the women's reservation, will only come into effect after the delimitation for another 15 years. Does that mean that women's quota is only going to be possible by 2029?
Yes, the census, there is a huge question mark over the census process as well. It was postponed because of COVID, and since then this question has come up to the Ministry of Home Affairs repeatedly by parliamentarians as to what is really happening for census. We don't really know when census will begin, and it's only based on the census figures that delimitation will be done. And that bill, clause 5 makes it very clear that the women's reservation provisions, even though they are put out in the bill, it will come into force only once the delimitation process is over. And it also goes on to say that once it is implemented, which means once you have the census data, once your delimitation process is over, from that date which is notified by the government, for the next 15 years, seat A, B, C, if they are mentioned as reserved for women, then those seat A, B and C will continue to be reserved for women for at least 3 terms. So 15 years there. After 3 terms, if the Parliament comes up or the Executive comes up with a fresh notification, then a fresh seat, a set of seats can be reserved. So the modalities have all been given in clause 5 of that bill. But like I said, by when this will be implemented will all depend on how soon the census can be completed. There is still a question mark on that.
Right. Thank you so much for that perspective, Arunima. We also have Aman. Aman, I'd like to understand this one aspect, the question that I was also asking Pallavi, the fact that there was so much that was being said that there is some kind of a tweaking to the old bill that was introduced in the UPA regime 2010. It was passed in the Rajya Sabha. What are those minor tweakings that we're looking at, or is it very similar to the earlier bill that was passed under the Congress regime?
Well, it looks very similar, apart from, of course, the point that Arunima was mentioning, that the exercise will kick in after the delimitation exercise is completed. So it is not coming for 2024. This bill will not come into effect immediately. The bill will have to wait for the census exercise to be completed, then the delimitation exercise to be completed, and after this the bill will come into force. And the day the bill comes into force, it will be in effect for the next 15 years. So that is for the next 3 Lok Sabha terms. After the bill comes into impact, the women reservation will be there.